Okay, everybody, thank you very much for attending the webinar on DALI DT8 tunable lighting with Crestron Home. My name's Oliver Hall from Ultamation, and yeah, we very much appreciate you coming along to this webinar and giving up your time. I think we'll give it another minute or so just to let people join. I can see the numbers are kind of slowly racking up. But yeah, I know we've got people from all over the place. There's a load of guys over from India, I think. And I think we saw Ben Clay pop up from Australia as well. So hi, Ben, hope you're well. Just in terms of sort of housekeeping stuff, we've got mics turned off, but I'm quite happy to take any questions towards the end of this. So if you want to use Teams's Q&A sort of feature, if you can post your questions in there, then we've also got Jasper and Emma on the call as well, and they'll start to answer the questions while I'm going through the slides. But we'll also have a chance to have a chat at the I'll talk to the questions later on at the end of this. Also, I think we've had this booked in for an hour. I'm sure it's not going to take anywhere near that. I mean, one of the nice things about this tool is that it is fairly quick to use, so the demo probably won't take that long. So other than me rambling on, it's probably only going to be half an hour or so. So hopefully you'll be able to get away and do something more constructive as well. So I'll give it another 30 seconds and then we'll start. The other thing is, sorry, I should have said, we are recording this as well. So we'll make the whole video available on YouTube towards the end as well. And I'll give you the links of where that's going to be. Okay, so I think we've kind of reached critical mass there. So what's the purpose of the webinar? So we're going to talk about, mainly this is about our tool, config to code. But specifically, we're going to be talking about a use case, which is DALI DT8 tunable lighting in the context of Crestron Home, which I know is something that a lot of guys are very, very keen to explore. So without further ado, here we go. So what are you to expect in this? So first of all, we'll talk about what is config to code, what the tool actually does, some of the reasons why you might want to use it. We'll look at who the tool's aimed at, because it's quite a broad kind of spectrum of use cases for this. Then I'm going to shudder because I'm going to try and do a live demo. Hopefully, I know with demos they never go right, but we'll do our best. Then I'll talk about sort of next steps after the webinar, how you can follow up with this sort of stuff. And then to round it all off, if you can post your questions in the Q&A section, ideally in there rather than the chat, that would be better for us. But then we'll try and sort of collate those questions. The guys will try and answer some questions during the webinar, but if there's any outstanding ones that I need to answer at the end, then I'll try and answer those as well, or I'll do my best anyway. So what is config to code? The nuts and bolts of it are, it's a tool that automates simple program builds. So if you think of the simple Windows world, if you're familiar with programming, it's a tool that basically takes some input and creates a simple Windows program automatically. It's a tool, as in config to code is a kind of wrapper tool, but it takes plugins. So what we're doing what we're in the process of doing at the moment is building these program generators. So effectively, if you come up with a smart idea for something that you think would be pretty cool, we would love to hear about it. We'll talk about that later on. I'm jumping ahead already, but really what we want to do is create a suite of program generators that effectively fast track the program generation. The idea really is to take the sort of the tedium side of simple Windows programming out of people's hands and allow you to focus on the kind of the cooler stuff, doing the logic. So at the moment we have the tool, the plugin that we're going to show today, which is the DALI 2 Simple Home DALI DT8 plugin. Then we also have one that creates BACnet. So BACnet for anyone that's actually done BACnet stuff in simple Windows, it can be quite a labor-intensive process. There's an awful lot of parameters and signals that you have to hook up. Using our BACnet plugin with config to code, you can effectively create a CSV file that describes your BACnet sort of environment, and you can also use some sort of little XML snippets of simple as well. which is, I mean, that's a subject in its own right, but you can effectively build whatever program you want and hook it all up to the BACnet system within Simple as well. So it takes all of that sort of slow, laborious type of programming away from you. There is underlying all of this, there's an XML style plugin which basically takes an XML document that describes a simple Windows program and will build the simple Windows program. That's a bit more involved, and we're definitely not going to get into that today, but if you really want to, that's another thing that you can do with config to code. You can effectively write your program as an XML document, or you could have it, I mean, that could come from another system, maybe it could come from a config file, and then the XML file becomes like an intermediate description of the program, but then you pass it through config to code and it will generate a simple Windows program at the end of it that will compile and even upload if that's what you want. And then we're also thinking about other things, other uses for config to code. So one of the things we're thinking about is, I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of, Crestron Home has a suite of modules which are CRPC lighting modules, which is effectively a way of custom programming talking to Crestron Home as a lighting system. So imagine, take D3 Pro away, put Crestron Home in its place. These modules will allow you to integrate with that. One of the things you have to do there is you have to know all of the IDs of the objects in Crestron Home. So one of the things we're thinking of doing is building a program generator that will effectively talk to Crestron Home, grab all those IDs and build the program for you. So at least those bits are all done for you. And that can save, sort of typos and things like that. Another much bigger project, though, is KNX. I mean, this is something that we're really sort of scratching the surface of at the moment. But what we'd really like to do is look at config to code being an automatic kind of interface generator between KNX systems. That's quite a tricky one, though, so that's not going to be any time in the next day or two, but it is in the pipeline. So what does the tool do? It takes some form of input. That form of input is actually defined by the plugin. So it could be a CSV file, which is what we're going to look at today. It could be XML. It could even be an HTTP request. In fact, the CRPC one, that's exactly what we do. We make requests to Crestron Home, get the IDs from there, and then we generate the program based on the data that we get from that. And what does it do? The plugin runs and it creates a standard SMW, a simple Windows program. It can then compile it and it uploads it as well if that's what you want to do. It doesn't the plugins don't have to generate a complete program. It could just generate the sort of framework for you, and then you could go and add to it as well. Some plugins may not actually allow you to keep the program. They might just generate a program, upload and compile it and upload it without you actually getting your hands on the simple Windows side of it. That's all basically down to the logic of the plugin, because we are hoping that perhaps other development houses might actually pick this up and write their own plugins as well. But the way it generates a simple Windows program does actually use the simple Windows subsystem. So we don't actually open simple Windows. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in more detail in a bit. But it does use Crestron's own libraries for creating the simple Windows program. So as far as we can make it, it is a simple Windows program. So it's not like we're creating a simple Windows program as a text file or anything like that. And if Crestron were to make advances in simple Windows or make some changes, it would break everything. We do actually use the published Crestron libraries for this as well. Okay, so why would you do it? Well, hopefully the reasons are becoming apparent. But if you're programming, then it can be a massive time saver. I mean, yes, there are often times where you have to do a bit of setup and a little bit of sort of prep work, but in terms of actual program generation, it can take an awful lot of the sort of the tedious side of simple Windows programming out of your hands, which if you are a programmer, and I understand that not everyone on the call will be a programmer, they might be just integrators using Crestron Home, but for the programmers, it means that you can maximize your programming margin. So, if you would normally quote a few hours for a job, and if you can do the same task with config to code, it might take you, half the time or 10 minutes. But from your point of view, you charge for the task, not for the time it takes to do it. And I was relying on the adage that you don't pay a plumber to bang on a pipe; you pay them for knowing where to bang. So hopefully that's where this can be of a benefit to the existing programmers out there. It's also repeatable. We all know that program requirements change over time, and it's one thing to do the job once, and then things change and customers change their minds and stuff like that. You have to then go back into your program and start making edits. Well, if you're using config to code, and if the output is the complete program, then all you have to do is change your config and run it again, and you get a new program, and hopefully that's the job done. So nice and quick as well. And then for some plugins, as I was saying, and this is the one we're going to talk about today, is one of these, there is no programming at all. You do require, like I'll keep going on about this, you do require simple windows in the background. So even if you're only a Crestron home integrator, you still do need the standard Crestron tools which are available to dealers. But you don't actually need to open simple windows at all. And the demo, I'm going to show you the whole thing working without actually touching simple windows, even though you will see the odd dialog box pop up. So who's it aimed at? Well, kind of everyone really. So programmers, as I've said, it's time saving. You can do a job that might take you quite a long time and might lead to a lot of copy and pasting errors and things like that. We all get kind of snowblind when we're duplicating backnet addresses and things like that. It's quite easy to make typos. Config to code kind of doesn't do that. I mean, as long as the setup is right, it'll generate a program and it won't make the typos in the signal names and things like that. So it can save a lot of time and it can stop duplicating errors, which means then you're saving more time because you're not debugging things that should never have happened in the first place. For integrators that don't have simple Windows programmers on staff or access to a CSP or anything like that, then this might be a cost-effective solution to you as well. I mean, there is a cost attached to it, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. But you can avoid a dependency on sometimes expensive third parties or people who are difficult to get hold of and all stuff like that. So it means you're decoupled from that dependency. So that might be something that's interesting for your business as well if you want to be kind of more autonomous. Obviously, this all depends on whether there is a plugin that suits your particular need. If you do need your own plugin, then you might be back into speaking to programmers again. So I'm going to talk briefly before I actually do the demo. I'm just going to talk briefly about what it is. So the demo. So we're going to talk about the DALI DT8 demo, and hopefully, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but hopefully you guys have got a video window as well as my screen share. So you should see the slides on the screen, but you should also see on my video window a very boring picture of a white wall with some lights pointing up against it and our programming ducks, one from Crestron, one of ours, and a DALI 2 sort of sitting in the foreground. Now that's the kit that's waiting to be exercised in a moment. So I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. If you can't, scroll through the video windows or wherever of the participants, and you should find my screen in there, and then you can see that's what's going to change in a minute. So the DALI DT8 demo, this is the particular plugin we're going to use, takes a CSV config file. So a CSV is comma separated variable, and it is just effectively something that you could build in Excel, which is what I'm showing here on the screen. And there's a very simple format. You have in the columns, I'll just go through them really quickly. You have a friendly name on the left-hand side. Now, each row can be something slightly different. So the top row on line 2, that's the line that defines an actual DALI 2 device. So that's why the next column, which is DALI device IP ID, is number 7. That just happens to be the IP ID that our DALI device that's in the picture is assigned. And then the next column along and the next row down is the loop definition. So each DALI 2 has 2 loops. So the number in that can be 1 or 2. And that just defines where the lights are going to be on that particular unit. Now, CCD recall, this is a bit of an obscure one. This actually relates to the DALI modules that Crestron have generated. So to do the DT8 stuff, the Crestron module has a parameter in it, which is called CCD recall. Now, 1 is the value you probably want to use there. That just takes the assigned value rather than a scene approximation, which it would be a 2. So I'm going to kind of gloss over that one. You don't need to worry about it. Just leave it at 1. And then fade rate. Now that is for the DALI group. So that's the number of milliseconds for the fade for the lights in this group. Then we've got the DALI group number on the next line down. And now each of these group numbers relates to a light. Again, I probably jumped ahead too fast here, but we're talking about DALI groups here, not individual DALI ballasts. So everything in this tool is geared towards controlling lights via groups. So for anyone who's not sure, there's a maximum of 16 groups on a DALI loop. So effectively, every time you go over 16, you would need to move on to another DALI loop. So you get 32 on a DALI 2. But then you can, as I've shown in the green section towards the bottom, you can actually have multiple DIN DALI 2s in this setup as well. So we're not actually going to show the stuff in green today, but that just demonstrates that you can build a system fairly large. I mean, you can pretty much put as many as you want in there. Now, so as you can see on lines 4, 5, and 6, you've got a strip light at the left light and the right light. Now you can't see the strip light, but it's where that grey bar is in the video window. It's pointing out the wall. So we've said the strip light's DALI group 1, left light's DALI group 2, the right light is DALI group 3. Obviously, you could, because they're DALI groups, you could put multiple lights into each group. So normally in a room, you would probably have multiple DALI ballasts assigned to a single group. Now we've only put the CCT values on, which is the calibrated color temperature values, on the strip light. Now that's because the 3 lights that we've got on display here, which have been very, very kindly donated to us or lent to us for a demo by a company in the UK called Foss, and we'll do a little shout out to them at the end. But the Foss lights here, we've got 2 that are just dimmable. The ones on the microphone stands are sort of a little setup that we set up here. The lights pointing up at the wall, they're just dimmable, so they don't have a CCT set. But the strip light is a color tunable LED strip. And that is warm white, cool white. So we've set a CCT for those 2. So that sets the minimum color temperature, the maximum color temperature, and that's what you set for the actual strip itself. So that's the config file. So I mean, I've waffled on about that for quite a long time, but hopefully you can see that that's actually very easy to set up, and you just add more lines and save it as in the CSV format. Now, the next stage would be DALI commissioning. This is totally standard. There's nothing special about our tool or anything else like this. You just have to do it. So you would do your DALI commissioning. I'm not going to really talk about this because this is the standard Crestron stuff. You will have your DALI ballasts, and as you can see, that's a picture of when we were commissioning this system. We've got 3 ballasts on the system. They're all on the same loop. And the first one is set to group 1, second one set to group 2, third one set to group 3. And even if it's a DT8 ballast, it still only has a single address. So you configure it in exactly the same way that you would a normal ballast. Right, then we'll move on to the tool. So the tool takes a sort of wizardy type approach. So we've tried to do that to make it easy to use, but also there's not really a great deal that you need to do with it. But it takes you through the first page that you get to. Will give you a sort of set of preconditions, make sure that the system is configured correctly. So as I say, you do need the Crestron libraries and databases and simple windows loaded on your machine. So if they're missing, you wouldn't get the green ticks that you can see on that left-hand box there. You also need some program generator modules. Now, the generator modules actually come with config to code. So when you install config to code, it will install, at the moment, the DALI and the BACnet program generators. So they will just get installed automatically anyway. So that will always be a green tick. There's another line missing on this image that unfortunately you have to, because of the way we interface with the simple Windows modules, you do have to run this program as admin on your machine. So there's another little check that isn't shown on that picture, but you will see in the real demo. That just makes sure that you're running as admin, and it won't let you proceed if you're not. So it'll force you to go back and restart the program and click on it and say launch as admin. So the next step in the wizard process, at this point on the first page, you don't know which plugin you're going to use. So the next stage is you need to pick a plugin. So you select a plugin, the ones that you've got loaded will be listed. You select that, then you say next, and then it'll take you into a configuration page. So you set up some of the items that you need to sort of mess around with on the plugin. And in this particular case, we're going to tell it where our config file is. We're going to tell it what type of processor we're going to target, whether it be a CP3 or an MC4 or whatever. And that kind of information does come out of the Crestron databases. So that's another reason why you need the Crestron databases loaded. Now, for the DALI DT8 system, or this plugin, you do need Simple Home as well, which is another one of our products. So the reason for that is because we're having to talk to a custom processor here. This isn't a program that can run on Crestron Home natively. It has to run on a secondary processor. So and to bring the lights into Crestron Home, we have to do that through Simple Home using the entities driver. So you do need a licensed copy of Simple Home as well. So the plugin points to the download files for Simple Home, and it does that because it needs to extract the modules that it needs out of the zip file. But that's it. That's all you have to do. You just download the zip file from our shop for Simple Home, and then you point the configurator at that zip file. and then the plugin will do the rest. There are some more screens, but I'm not going to describe them all like that. Right, so I think the next thing is to talk about dependencies, and I know this will upset some people, but it is a Windows tool, I'm afraid. Sorry, Mac guys. But Simple Windows is a Windows tool as well, so you know it is the way it is. So first dependency, Windows. Second dependency, you do need Crestron software, so you will need Simple Windows, you will need the device databases and things like that. You don't need to open any of them when you run the tool, but it does rely on them being present on your machine because, as I say before, part of the tool calls out to various bits and pieces that Crestron have developed over the years. So we need those to be there to complete the process. And that's also the reason why we can kind of be confident that what we're generating is a valid Simple Windows program, because we don't actually create the program. It's actually the Crestron tools that are building the program. We're just telling the Crestron tools what to do. Another vitally important part of having up-to-date databases, though, from Crestron is that this plugin uses Crestron's DALI DT8 driver, which was released in the summer of 2024. So some of you may have already messed around with this as well if you're into Simple Windows programming, but you do need this module, and it comes from the Crestron database. So obviously that will need to be installed as well. You'll get various errors if it isn't. So if that happens, that's probably what the problem is. Now I've shown a picture of Simple Windows open here, but you don't need to open it. I only took that screenshot so that I could show you that that's the driver that we actually sort of extract from the database when we build the program. You are going to need Simple Home as well. Now Simple Home is, if you haven't come across it yet, it's a kind of integration product between Crestron Home and Crestron Custom. All of this Simple Windows program has to run on a custom processor. We can't run it on a Crestron Home processor itself. So again, you do need another processor off to the side for this, but Simple Home is the bridge between the two. And Simple Home, with the release of OS4 earlier in the year, we also released support for lighting. So third-party lights now can appear in Crestron Home as native lights, and that's how we're doing what we're doing. We're effectively taking the lighting groups that are on the DALI group, on the DALI 2, and presenting them as lights in Crestron Home. So you do need Simple Home as well, and that little arrow is pointing to the fact that that's where we tell you you need it, or where you need to point to it. And you won't be able to go on to click the next button without that. Right, so this is the bit I'm dreading. So we're actually going to do a live demo now. So I will just close that down for a moment. Right, so here you can see, hopefully you can see my screen now, which I'm sharing. So this is just my little sort of setup. So I've got my CSV file here, which I can show you is there. So that's the CSV file we're actually going to use. Some of the numbers are slightly different from before, but that's just sort of tweaking things around. I mean, as I say, I don't have the other DALI interface in this file because we've actually only got one. So lose that. This is also the Simple Home example program that we've downloaded from the shop. That's absolutely as it comes from the shop. You just go and click on the link, download it. You don't have to open it, don't touch it. Just pop it in the file in a folder somewhere, and that's all you need to do. And then we've also got an output folder. Now at the moment, you will see that the output folder is empty, but that won't be the case for hopefully very long. I will briefly show you. We've got a DIN AP4 running Crestron Home here. You can see that the room is there. We've got a DALI webinar room, and there is a lights tab, but there's nothing in it. So there are no lights on the system at the moment. And I will show you, we're going to be setting that up using the Crestron Home configuration tool in a moment as well. But first of all, just get the job done. So this is config to code. So I'm just moving other windows out of the way here. Right, so this is config to code. As you can see, I've loaded config to code has loaded the symbol libraries, and it's loaded a load of symbols. I mean, these numbers are irrelevant, but it's just telling you that that's what it's done. And we've got 2 potential config to code candidates. That means we've got 2 program generators available, and we have elevated privileges, as in I ran it as administrator. And that's as simple as you just right click on it. Rather, when you have the program icon, you just right click on it and say run as admin, and that's all it does. There we go. Now we can click on next. So now we need to select a program generator. So which one are we going to use? We've only got 2. We're not going to do BACnet. We're going to do DIN DALI 2. So that just gives you a little bit of information that's contained within the generator. It tells you what it's all about, so you can make sure you get the right one. And also, you may have noticed that another icon popped at the bottom here. It says powered by Simple Home. And you can see if I switch between the 2, the BACnet device tree builder doesn't need Simple Home. It uses BACnet because that's what it's for. So that icon disappears there. But when we go to the DALI 2, so the DALI 2 one, the Simple Home icon pops up as well, just to remind you that you do need to have a license for that as well. The Powered by Simplified 2 thing, that's just a throwback to the fact that a lot of the code or the technology that we have for config to code was actually born in a program called Simplified 2, which is a sort of programmer's toolkit. And it's still available and you can still use it. And you can do program generation much, much more flexibly in Simplified 2 than you can with config to code, but it's really aimed at proficient programmers on that side. So it's probably more powerful, but anyway, but it uses a lot of the same tech under the hood. So that's why we've got that little icon there as well. So we're going to do DALI 2 to Simple Home. We're going to tell it where we want our program output. Now you can, because I've already run the program once or twice or 20 times, it's automatically filled in a lot of the values for this. So I'm not going to start fiddling around, but you click on the browse folder, it'll open up a browse thing and you can pick an output folder. So I'm going to pick the output folder, which is this one down here. I'm going to pick I have picked the CSV file, which is the same, which is that file there. We're going to use a CP3 because that was the processor that nobody else in the office was using. And the Simple Home host port number 33333, that's just the default port number for Simple Home. So you have to have that as an attribute here because potentially you might want to use a different one. And that just gives you the flexibility to do different things. I mean, you might have programs running on different program slots on your custom processor that both use Simple Home. In that case, you would actually only need one Simple Home license, but you could talk to a lighting program in one place, and you could talk to, I don't know, a program that does something different, with extension devices or something on another one. You would need different host ports in that case, though. And then we've got the Simple Home zip file. So that was the file down here, which is just that file that we've downloaded from our web shop. So that just tells the config to code program generator where to find the Simple Home dependencies. So once all that's set up, you can say next again. Now, this is where we actually start building stuff. Now, most of the program generators determine whether you can do a demo build or a full build, which requires using one or more credits. If you want to do demo stuff, you just click on the demo mode. Now, demo mode depends, what you actually get with demo mode depends on what the plugin developer has determined demo mode should be. In the case of the DALI 2, it limits you to, I think, 4 lights or 4 light groups, sorry. So it will, if you had a system that needed 40 groups, it would only build the first 4 and then it would stop. You'd still be able to run it with the 4, but to do the full system, you would then need to use up a credit from somewhere. So demo build is really just so that you can all have a go with this and have a mess around with it and see how you like it. And if it's good, if it works for you, great. And then you can go on to the full build. If you've got a system that only has 4 lights in it, then I will be honest, you can just use it as it is. There's no other limitation. You will still need, though, a Simple Home license. So that bit is non-negotiable, I'm afraid. You need a license on the Crestron Home end for Simple Home, and you'd purchase that the normal way through the web shop. So if you're doing a full build, though, the plugin will tell you how big, well, how many credits this build is going to use. And we're going to use it 1 credit here. Now I've put in a test key here, which is incorrect. So I'm going to change that and put in my demo key, which I know, well, I hope, has more credits on it. There we go. So it's happy with that, and it says that key's got 8 credits left available. It's just gone and talked back to the sort of home base over here. Checked what the credit limit is, and it says, right, great, we can carry on with that. So using the demo key, I'm afraid, guys, we will be removing the credits from this straight after the webinar, so unlucky. But yeah, so you can use, we're going to use a credit here. Then we just have a little bit of a disclaimer here, and I'm sorry that this is kind of sort of just to cover ourselves a little bit, but really the onus is on you guys to make sure that the config file is as correct as you can make it before you consume a credit. If your customer then comes along and starts changing their mind later on after you've built the program and used up a credit, I'm afraid that's kind of on the customer, because it's better to have correct information up front. I mean, you can keep building demos as long as you like, but when you do a full build, that uses up a credit. So we just ask you to say, yes, I get that, and I'm happy to proceed because I know I'm going to use up a credit. Once you've done that, though, that's it. This is the moment of truth. We're going to click on generate. Okay, here we go. Right, so what it's actually doing now is it's loading up, well, actually, you can see it in the background. It's extracted the simple home files from the zip file temporarily. It's also loading up simple Windows kind of elements in the background. You don't necessarily see a lot of that happening. At some point, it's then going to build, it's going to read the config file. It's going to build the kind of the skeleton of the program. And once it's done that, it's then going to actually do the program generation. Oh, I think I might have just. There we go, it's in the background there, sorry. So that little pop-up box is actually, that is Simple Windows, or part of Simple Windows doing its thing. But it's just built the program, it's checked that there aren't any errors. And again, this is our CP3, and I'm going to use slot 2 because I know there's something on slot 1 already. This does require you to know what's running on your slots. It's not as sophisticated as, say, Toolboxes, where it'll tell you what programs you've got running in different slots and things like that. So you probably do need to make sure you're not going to go and overwrite somebody else's program before you load it up. And our CP3 has the username Crestron and the blank password. So I'm going to click upload now. So now that's connected to the CP3. This is all over SSH as well. It's loaded up the program file and it's now running the program. So when that's completed, there we go, it's come back. So basically we now have Crestron Home, a simple Windows program, a complete simple Windows program. And in fact, I'll show you where it is. So if we now go and have a look in the output folder, there you go, you can see that's what we generated. So that's been generated by the config to code plugin. I'm not going to open that right now because I really want to prove the point that you don't actually have to open Simple Windows to do this. And this is just the final page to say you've got to the end of the process. You can close this program. I'm actually going to go back just because I forgot to mention something. But up here, it says the compiled output is located here. So that's the actual LPZ, and the web and the actual SMW file is also there. So you could, it's just giving you a hint there to say if you wanted to go and edit that program, because you can. I mean, if you want to add to that program now that it's been generated, you're absolutely free to do so. You can go in and do whatever you want. It's just a simple Windows program at this point. Right, but we've reached the end of config to code's job here. So I'll just minimize that, and then I'm going to go into, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try and open these both at the same time. So hopefully we'll see a few things happen in tandem. So the simple Windows program is running now. It's on the processor. It's doing its thing. So now we're going to add the driver to Crestron Home. So I'm in the DALI webinar room already. Sorry, I should have probably started back here. We've got a number of test rooms in there. I'm going to go into platform drivers and scroll, which I believe we're going to be able to do with the wheel fairly soon. I'm going to go into Ultamation, and then you want the entity driver. Now, there's two parts to Simple Home. There's the sort of traditional driver stuff, which is where extensions and things like that live, and the things like the source and the AV switcher and all of that kind of stuff. That if that's what you wanted to integrate with Crestron Home, you'd use that side of things. The entity drivers are the newer form of SDK that Crestron have been producing, and that's where lights are. And I think most other drivers will be coming through entities as well. So we have to have two different drivers, but effectively you just go for the simple home entities one. So we're going to add that. That's downloading it from Crestron. And let's call it DALI platform. I mean, that doesn't matter. This is just the platform driver. You don't actually have to see any of that. I mean, rather, that doesn't get shown to the user anywhere. Right. Then we need to tell it where we've got Crestron Simple Home running, which is that's on our CP3. That's the IP address. There's that port 33333. So if you remember that. The next part is enter your license key for Simple Home. I'm not going to do that because the license will run in full mode, full fat mode, kind of no restrictions for an hour. So we're not going to be on this webinar for another hour. So I'm just going to say go. Right, now that driver is now running and it will be talking to, I hope, there we go, it says online. That means it's talking to the CP3. And now if we go back down to the bottom of the drivers, we then now see a thing called managed platforms that if you were very eagle-eyed, you would have seen wasn't there before. Go into managed platforms, we've got the DALI platform, which is the name of this driver over here. We've got 3 items in it. And we've got left, right, and strip, which by no small coincidence are the same names that we put in here, strip, left, and right. So that's where those words have come from. So I'm going to add the lights. I'm going to stick them in this room as well. So I'm going to put left in, and at this point you are able to give it another name. I I think a feature request might be to pre-populate the name with the name of the driver or device, because that might save a bit of typing, but there we go. I'm going to put left in, and what we'll see on the Crestron home side is left will appear. So now if we go into lights now, there, left is there. I'm going to do the same with right. Going to be imaginative and call it right. There you go. I hope you saw right popped up on the right there, and then strip. Let's go mad, call it strip. And there we go, we've got strip as well. So that's it. That is the Crestron home setup. So now we're back in Crestron home. Don't know why it's showing me adverts of women's clothing, but there we go. And this is Crestron home. And now, hopefully, if you're looking at the video window, you can see the lights turning on and off. And that's it. Now, I'm going to apologize here because I think for the video window, you don't get the same effect that I'm getting here. We tried it with lights on, we tried it with lights off. Unfortunately, I think it's the camera that I've got here, but you can't see the color temperature change the way it is. But I'm going from warm white to cool white there, and in the office, it's going from a lovely orangey glow to a cool white temperature. It's really effective. Unfortunately, I think you guys might just see a blue halo. But if you'll have to kind of take my word for it. But we're very, very grateful to FOSS for lending us these lights, because we didn't have the DALI DT8 drivers or tape. So they very kindly sent the stuff over for us to do this demo with. But that's kind of it. There you go. So, I mean, you can do the all on. Everything comes on, all off. There we go. So hopefully that's kind of it, really. Hopefully that's given you a taste of what the plugin for DALI 2 can do, and what what config to code can do. I mean, the potential for config to code is absolutely huge. I mean, it's not just this DALI stuff. We think we can do all sorts of things with it. So really, so next steps. What should you do now that I've just shown you I've turned some lights on and off, which is probably a massive anticlimax for all the talking I've done. Where to get it? It's on the shop right now. In fact, it was published while I've been chatting. So if you go to our shop, and I can't remember exactly where, but Emma might chip in a second and tell us where to get it. But it's in the, I think she's going to put a link in actually. I think it's in the integration section. But you can get that right now, download it. It's got the DALI 2 program generator in it. If you set up the config file, it's quite straightforward. I tell you what, I will put the config file on the shop as well, because I don't think it's there, so that you've got something to use as a template. I'll do that straight after this call. Then you can start using this if you've got a DALI 2. You will need Simple Home as well, as I said, but you can download that and use it in free trial mode just to get the whole thing up and running. So credits and demo use on the shop, where you will download config to code, you can also purchase credits. Now, as I say, you can use it in demo mode, and you can do that as much as you like. If you actually want to build a large program and get the benefits of config to code, as in the time saving, then you will need to buy credits from our shop. And when you buy a credit, you'll be given a key, and that key is what you put into the config to code tool. And as you use up the credits, it'll tell you what your credit limit is and how many you've got left and all that kind of stuff. And it's as simple as that, really. And we do have options that if you want to buy credits in multiples, like in 10s or 50s or whatever, then there are discounted pricing for that as well. What's the next one? Other program generators. Yes, we would love to hear your thoughts. If you've got ideas for ways that config to code could turn some data into some program, and if it's the kind of thing that other dealers and integrators and programmers would find useful, we're very, very keen to hear your thoughts on that, because you know, we're looking for ideas, and we'd be very grateful if you can help us out with that. If you have got any ideas, or if you've got any problems, or you need to ask any questions, please contact us at support@ultamation.com. And there's a group of us over here. We all write programs, but we all answer support tickets as well. We don't have a separate support team. We're all in it up to our elbows, and we will try and answer your questions as quickly as we can. And they're a very friendly lot as well. So yeah, don't be worried about asking questions there. If you need more info, the social media stuff is the usual place to get that. So @Ultamation is our Twitter, X, Instagram kind of handle. And then I think it's @Ultamation Limited for Facebook and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, the recording of this video, we'll put it onto YouTube as soon as we can. It takes Microsoft a little bit of time to kind of encode it all and send it to us and stuff like that. But as soon as we can, we'll get that on the YouTube channel, and that is at Ultamation Limited. If you go to at Ultamation, unfortunately, you'll find some guy that does or did a couple of Minecraft videos about 20 years ago. So yeah, make sure you put the limited on the end, otherwise you'll have a very disappointing experience. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you again and again to Foss Lighting. I really can't thank them enough for lending us the lights. We will get them all boxed up and sent back down to Crestron straight after this. But yes, thank you, Foss. The lights are absolutely amazing. I mean, I must admit, just if any of you are thinking of purchasing lights, these lights are really nice. They've got fantastic sort of like the little WeGo connector things with little spring-loaded caps and stuff. So easy to wire up. It was actually quite a pleasant experience, whereas I normally don't enjoy fiddling around with little cables because my eyesight's going. Right, but I think on that note, I think it's probably time to see if there were any questions. Emma,
hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
Right, so we've had one question come in asking if we could put an Excel template
yes,
on the shop.
I realised.
So they avoid making silly mistakes. So we've
right, I will do that.
Their wording, not ours. So we've said that we can add that in. We've also been asked whether we'll be building plugins for our modules.
I mean, we can. I mean, I think we need to know exactly what you would want. Right. So the plugins are highly dependent on what data you put into them or where the data comes from. So we'd need to know, there needs to be a kind of a use case really for these things, because it's quite a high level kind of idea. It's not really a programming toolkit. It's more of a kind of I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I've got this data, and I turn it into a program. So yes is the answer. I mean, you know, we would love to have 100 plugins. That'd be great. And if it can use our modules as well, all the better. So I don't know, whoever asked the question, if they wouldn't mind firing a note over to, or sticking it in the Q&A bit, or sending a message over to support with any sort of ideas that they've got, that'd be ideal. I mean, the big one will be the KNX one. KNX one. If we can do that, that'll be absolutely unbelievable.
So just to follow on from that before we go to KNX, so it's from Ben Clay.
Oh yeah.
And sorry, I've just had a pop up, and he's asking about it showing for DMX running.
I think that's something, Ben, maybe we could have a chat offline, because I'm not quite sure what you're after there. That DMX can run, I mean, with our DMX controller, that's native inside Crestron Home anyway, so you wouldn't need a third party, you know, a secondary system for that. So maybe I'm sure I'm just not understanding Ben's question, but if that's okay, if Ben and I can pick that up later on, that'd be great.
Great. Someone has asked about the KNX, and we've said that it's next in line. So just keep an eye on social media channels, and then you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, George, just on the KNX statement. I mean, the challenge is there, just to explain to everyone, it's complicated, because KNX is pretty low level at the fundamentally. You know, lots of devices have lots of features, and there's not really much of a standard to say that, you know, one thermostat works the same as another thermostat. So one of the challenges we've got is making sure that we understand that whatever KNX devices are in a system, we can map those onto, you know, logical ideas that Crestron Home can understand as well, and then we can represent the, you know, sort of create the bridge between the two. So I mean, it's not just, in fact, it's not actually a programming problem, that it's much more of a kind of how do we accomplish the task. So that's the kind of thing that I know the guys in the office have already started looking at. But yeah, like Emma says, we will be on that, because we know it's really important, especially for the German market. I know that they're absolutely gagging for this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's high on our list.
Okay, another question's come in. Can we control individual DALI ballast instead of group?
I'm afraid not. No. So the Crestron DALI 2 DIN-DALI 2 module is fundamentally focused around groups. So that's our kind of that's the only way we can do it at the moment. So unfortunately, you would have to allocate a group to a ballast to make this work. Sorry.
Right. I think that's all the questions, unless anyone's got any more who are still listening.
It's probably bored to tears by now.
Okay, and then just to mention, I've put the link to the config to code on our shop in both the chat and the Q&A, so hopefully you've all found it somewhere on there.
Yeah, I mean, there is one other thing that I know was mentioned. It was actually a question from Matt Clifford yesterday, that we only currently support dimmable and color tunable lights on the DALI ballasts, and somebody was asking about switchable as well. That is something we're going to look at, so we'll add that in, and that shouldn't be too long, too far away. So that we'll effectively control switchable, dimmable, and color tuning via DT8. Obviously, switchable isn't DT8, but there we go. All right. So
Right, I think that's it.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you very much for everybody who's managed to stay the distance and stick with it. I realise I get a bit rambly, so apologies for that, but I hope you found it useful. And like I say, any comments or questions, if you want to send them through to support, that would be absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate it. And I very much appreciate you giving up your time on Thursday. I know it's pretty late for the guys in India. Ben, it must be, I don't know what time it is for you, but yeah, crazy o'clock. So very much appreciate it. So thank you very much for everyone who's attended. And like we say, we'll get the video onto YouTube.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.